Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, give us a call or a text on the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, statues are racist again, and a big federal arrest in Seattle's jungle shows you why we needed Neil Floyd as opposed to somebody appointed by a bunch of Democrats who Inslee handpicked. But before we get to any of that, my friends, crazy stuff in Washington today. And it's all good. Let me explain. For a while now, it's been, whose side are you on? Do you want Rubio in 2028? Do you want Vance in 2028? And it seems like today there was a perfect distinction between both of them. Vance went on Joe Rogan's podcast, and it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty for a lot of reasons. Rubio gave one of the best speeches, not that I've ever heard him give, but one of the best speeches I've ever heard in politics. Let's start with J.D. Vance for a second. Pulling all the clips would have been a lot of work for Kevin, especially because Joe Rogan does, a 3-hour show, a 2-hour show, whatever it is, going through all those clips. Luckily for me, I have a transcript of the interview that Joe Rogan did with Vice President J.D. Vance. I'm just going to give you a few quotes here from this, and I want you to tell me if this sounds like something J.D. Vance would say, something like Donald Trump would say, or something like Bernie Sanders and Zoran Mamdani would say. Extreme wealth inequality does create problems. Vance was saying that America needs a third way between free market and socialism. So capitalism don't work anymore? What's interesting is I heard somebody say that the other day. You know who said something just like that? Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom. He also was talking about how the game is rigged. This is the kind of stuff we hear from the socialists all the time. He was talking about how we need more power in this system. You got to give people a seat at the table. Doesn't it sound like all the stuff they say about the Starbucks baristas? Your vote doesn't matter as much because the corporations were more powerful than government. These are the quotes that J.D. Vance had while talking to Joe Rogan yesterday. I know the clips that were going viral was about some things he said that weren't really very friendly to our ally Israel. Leave that aside for a minute. J.D. Vance's upbringing is fascinating. If you read Hillbilly Elegy, if you saw the movie, and I actually like the movie more than the book, it actually made me tear up a little. Talk about a guy who was raised on social services because his family wasn't well off. And I wonder if that left an impact. As opposed to, I never want to have these things again. I want to make sure no American ever has to rely on these things because the free market is better. So how do we get everybody a job? How do we help out those who need help? But how do we get everybody out of these failing systems? Instead, it sounds like he wants to use government more than it's being used right now. I've been kind of iffy on J.D. Vance, but this thing he did with Joe Rogan, I don't know, guys. It seems like a lot of my fears about J.D. Vance are being confirmed. It seems like what people are doing now is they think the kids are all socialists and we got to appeal to the kids. There was a whole discussion on the Joe Rogan podcast between him and J.D. Vance about being whether Republicans are cool or not and how they lost the cool factor, how they never had the cool factor, how celebrities and people who like movie stars and rock stars, they're usually on the left. So does that mean the kids are going to the left? And my issue with that is, first of all, Donald Trump was the cool factor in the last election. Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. What did Donald Trump realize at the RNC? You bring Hulk Hogan on stage, it's a lot of nostalgia. You have massive shows of military support and American nostalgia and talk about how great our armed forces are and all that. People are going to love it. American flags everywhere. So much so that my son My first son, a lot of political opinions. My second son, not very political. So much so that the day of the 2024 election, my son comes to me, I think I've told this story before, comes to me and he says, Dad, can I borrow your Charger tomorrow? And I used to give him my truck, which was a little bit more beat up to drive to school. And I said, son, why do you want my Charger for tomorrow? And he goes, well, I want to support Donald Trump. And I said, well, what does that have to do with anything? And he says, well, Dad, we're going to drill, baby, drill. And I want to show everybody I've got a V8 and I want to put the Trump flags on it. I want to put the American flags on it. And I want to write Trump for president. I'm shocked because this kid is not political. He's usually the kid who goes, Dad, really? All we talk about is politics, Dad. That's usually the kind of kid he is. And he wanted the whole car decked out for Donald Trump. That's what he wanted. And I said, son, why do you want to do that? He goes, because he's cool, he's awesome, he's going to win. I'm just like, what is happening here? When's the last time a Republican was called cool or awesome and they're going to win? I also don't care about the cool factor. Is the cool factor a bonus? Yes, I care about who's going to be good at governing, and that doesn't always mean the cool factor. Marco Rubio was an incredible senator, and he's an excellent, one of our best secretaries of state that we've ever had. Today, he held this big event where he was declaring war on far-left ideology, specifically Antifa. This was something in the first Trump administration I really wanted them to do, and they never did. Do you remember how BLM and Antifa were tearing apart our country in the summer of love in 2020? And though you heard Trump condemn it, they had the full power of the U.S. government, and they weren't using it to shut down the riots. State Department put this out today. Far-left terrorists and aligned groups often use sophisticated, organized networks to perpetrate violence as a political tool, seeking to implement an extreme political vision through intimidation, coordinated campaigns of terror. It is a strategy that explicitly aims to undermine the political foundations of free and self-governing societies, utilizing bombings, assassinations, other forms of terrorism to silence speech, limit political opposition, change policy outcomes, and sabotage political process. Today, in support of the National Security Presidential Memorandum 7 and ongoing U.S. government efforts to disrupt networks, fomenting political violence before they escalate to criminal action, the Department of State is announcing a new visa restriction policy that targets members of far-left terrorists and other aligned groups who have supported or incited acts of terrorism, supported violent criminal activity, participated in economic sabotage, financed, recruited, or provided logistical support for violent or criminal actions committed by far-left terrorists and other aligned groups, and or facilitated the convergence of far-left terrorists and other aligned networks for the purposes of violent action. Why didn't we do this after 9/11? Why didn't we do this during any point in our history where we had to deal with terrorists? Why are we only doing this now? But God bless Marco Rubio for doing this now, because this puts all of us at risk. Look at what happened in downtown Seattle just 6 years ago. We're now at the anniversary, the 6-year anniversary of the autonomous zone, where 6 people were shot, 2 people were killed, rapes, robberies. What are we at? $40-50 million in lawsuits that have been settled or lost by the city of Seattle because of that mess? They let these far-left activists, who many of them were not even from Seattle, destroy our city. Why should we let them into the country? Because a lot of this Antifa insanity actually started in Europe. Never mind the Islamic terror. Why do we let people who want to do us harm come to our universities, come to our companies? Why do we let them in the country? If they say death to America on social media, odds are they probably don't have good intentions when they come to America. Here's what Marco Rubio said.
So let me start by saying that the most essential duty of the state, the first responsibility, frankly, of any government of any kind, is the protection of its people. It's the protection of its country. This is a sacred obligation that should transcend all political and all ideological divisions. It is why, for example, we have militaries. It's why we have intelligence agencies. It's why counterterrorism bureaus exist, why police forces exist. Keeping our people safe is the reason why every country represented here has all of these things.
Exactly. Exactly right. Why does every other country have closed borders, but we don't? Why does every other country assume the worst before somebody comes in, not the best before somebody comes in? I know it's not the 1930s anymore where people were coming here for a new life. Here, they're coming here, a lot of them are coming here specifically to take advantage of our educational system, specifically to undermine our country. Why do you want that in the country? The first duty of government is to keep people safe. I say this all the time. If I knew my taxes were going to fire, police, roads, bridges, I wouldn't complain as much. Instead, we're spending $5 million a year here in Washington state on trans surgeries for convicted felons who are still in jail. It's insane. So why haven't we done this in the past?
The number of people killed by jihadist terrorism in Europe dropped by roughly 97% from the year 2015 to the year 2024. In other words, to a very great extent, our counterterrorism strategy has worked. The threat has not disappeared, of course. It will continue to exist, particularly so long as we tolerate immigration systems that imports these threats directly into our respective homelands. But this threat has been severely diminished. The world looks very different today because of it. For far too long, however, our counterterrorism doctrine has had a blind spot when it comes to extremist violence from the political left.
Yes, exactly right. Why is it all the time I always hear about white supremacists? I've never seen a white supremacist. I've dealt with anti-Semitism my whole life. I've dealt with people hating on conservatives my whole life. I've never met one of these white supremacists. I've seen a lot of Antifa activists, a lot of trans-Tifa activists, been yelled at by a lot of politicians on the left. Never, ever seen any of these white supremacists they talk about. And I'm not saying they don't exist, but there's like 5 of them. Meanwhile, we had a whole bunch of far-left activists that for the past 3 years have been marching and blocking highways, blocking streets, taking over universities, causing over $1 million worth of damage to the University of Washington. Today, the Seattle Stranger put out its endorsements. For those of you who don't know what the Stranger is, it's a far-left blog rag that's in Seattle. And if there's a far-left issue, they will find the issue that is farther left to that. So they put out their endorsements. By the way, not that different from the Seattle Times list, which is really messed up, by the way. Go through it, compare, you'll see. My endorsements will be up on the KVI website probably tonight or tomorrow. I'll make sure everybody knows when they're finalized and when they're up. It's still a work in progress. But what happens is the Seattle Times is talking about the race between Lauren Davis and Imran Siddiqui. Lauren Davis, very nice person. Her and I disagree on literally everything. Everything. I don't think there's any point where we agree on anything at all. She is definitely to the left. Definitely left of center. But this year, she wrote an op-ed talking about how maybe these justice reform things we do for juveniles aren't working because juveniles are still committing crimes and still being churned out of the system. That's not rehabilitating anybody, and this diversion isn't working. Maybe we need something else. How dare you? How dare you? So in the Stranger's write-up of her, she is running against a guy named Imran Siddiqui, who is the local chapter president of the Council for American Islamic Relations, which is a huge organization in the U.S. which has ties to Hamas, which has ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, which is an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terror financing trial in U.S. history. Imran Siddiqui has ties to terror. This is a guy who celebrated October 7th. This is a guy who hates Jews. And they are mad at Lauren Davis for going on far-right radio host Ari Hoffman's show. Stranger wrote that. Far-right radio host. The terrorist supporter. The terrorist adjacent, the terrorist link guy. He's not far-right. But me, because I'm conservative, I'm far-right. I am tired of this nonsense when the Stranger supports defunding the police and Antifa and BLM and all these radical activist groups who have no problem lighting our city on fire. It is insane to me that still when you call this out, you're looked at like a crazy people by some people in our society. Marco Rubio even said the same thing.
Even today, the very idea that far-left terrorism could be a serious threat is treated as a right-wing fever dream, or worse, as a dangerous fascist conspiracy. It's treated this way by many in the press, by many in academia and our universities, and by many of our legacy institutions. You will no doubt see the dogma rear its head in the coverage of this very conference. In spite of the clear and the undeniable reality, in spite of the objective numbers and statistics, in spite of the fact that in this room today, there are representatives from across the political spectrum, we will hear this kind of organized violence and terror will be dismissed.
I'm old enough to remember 2020. I'm old enough to remember 6 blocks of our city being taken over by far left terrorists who demanded that the city give them barricades, who armed those barricades with AR-15s to anybody who would stand opposed, who gave them out of a trunk of a Tesla to anybody who would stand opposed. I remember a mayor, Jenny Durkin, who ordered a police precinct evacuated. That neighborhood still has not recovered 6 years later after all that. And you're going to have all these people on the left saying January 6th, January 6th, January 6th. You know, one of the other reasons I hate what happened on January 6th, aside from the storming the Capitol and everything else, and I know what you're going to say. There are people who didn't do it. I get it. But you know the thing I hate the most about it, aside from assaulting the police officers and all the other stuff that happened that day? The thing I hate the most about it is that it gave the left the argument it wanted. It completely absolved them of everything that had happened that entire summer. So we had rioting from the death of George Floyd, which was right before Memorial Day weekend. We had rioting from then through basically November, through the election of 2020. That's what we had. You had months. So you had June, July, August, September, October. 5 months of rioting. And then 1 day of rioting in D.C. And after that, you weren't allowed to call out Antifa. After that, you weren't allowed to call out BLM because they just said January 6th, January 6th, January 6th, January 6th. And yet it took away what the left had done to this country for 6 months. Literally for 6 months. So, Marco Rubio is declaring war on Antifa. He says, here's what they're going to do.
Through intelligence and information sharing, through coordinated law enforcement strategy, through financial targeting and disruption, we will dismantle these networks brick by brick. It is time for the people of the civilized world to defend ourselves, to stand united against this encroaching darkness and fight for what is ours. It is easy to destroy great things. It is far more difficult to make them. The enemies of civilization are only capable of the former. They are only capable of destroying great things. All they know is destruction. But we have built great things together. We have done it time and again. We know what we must do, and now we must do it. Thank you for coming today.
Marco Rubio's speech was 20 minutes long. That's it, just 20 minutes long. It is one of the best speeches I have ever heard in politics. Called out everything that we know has been true and been going on for years, probably since long before 2020. As far as I could track it back in the U.S., Antifa and BLM violence really became a thing around 2016. 2014, 2016. Called out everything and said we're not going to put up with it anymore. Why do you want people in this country who are going to undermine it? So while J.D. Vance is picking up the left's talking points, Marco Rubio is calling it out. President Trump knows he only has a few months left if the GOP loses the midterms for his agenda. So he's running the country like a man who's in his second term, which he is, because he has limited days left to fix this country and save it from the radical left. That's what Marco Rubio is doing. So while J.D. Vance is starting to sound like a leftist, starting to sound like somebody from the podcast Right Nation, Marco Rubio is talking about American exceptionalism, defending the homeland, keeping us safe, and keeping out terror. I will post the entire speech over on my social media platforms after the show today because I think it is a must-watch for anybody who is a freedom-loving, America-supporting, flag-waving citizen of this great country. It was that incredible. And I don't say that very, very often. I wish I could take 20 minutes of the show today and just play the whole thing. That's how good it was. It was really, really that incredible. I don't know the last time I saw anything like it, even in professional politics. It was that good. It was that incredible. And I will make sure to post it so that way all of you can watch it. 2028, you're going to have a choice, likely between Vance and Rubio. I think the choice is becoming clearer and clearer and clearer by the day. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Up next, the feds are going after some guys who are dealing drugs in the jungle here in Seattle. It's about time because the locals won't do it. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Looks like our phones are still having some challenges today, but we are getting a lot of texts on the text line. Only one person, Ed, says JD for president, not Marky Mark. Ed, you're going to have to make your case on the text line today because you're in the minority about this one. El Darthmo says, Ari, I believe we are looking at future President Rubio. I mean, this is what we're seeing on the text line. Everybody's seeing this one here, right? Where everybody's talking about Marco Rubio. Professional. Knows what he's talking about. Prepared. Not spewing conspiracy theories or socialist policies. That's a plus. Look, do I like when he debates normally? Yeah. Do I think he's brilliant? Yes. Do I think he's successful? Yes. I'm not liking some of the policies he's talking about. I'm really, really not. American isolationism, talking about the socialism stuff, the workers. I have some concerns about this. I really, really do. That's why I read you pieces of the transcript. This is something that's very, very challenging for me. Anywho, switching gears over to what's happening closer to home. Yesterday, we told you the story about how some leftist federal judges decide to appoint their own U.S. attorney because Democrats are blocking the appointment of Neil Floyd to be the U.S. attorney for Western Washington. So yesterday, they tried a little coup where you had this guy Rogoff show up and say, I'm the captain now. And what happens is 30 minutes later, Donald Trump called him and said, you're fired. That was the end of him. Neil Floyd's back in charge. But when I get the press releases from the Justice Department about what's going on in Western Washington, I think to myself, would these things even be happening if there was somebody like Nick Brown in charge? Don't forget, he was a U.S. attorney. And you know how I know these cases wouldn't be prosecuted? Because I didn't used to get press releases like this. Tell me if you think this crime would be prosecuted if a leftist was in charge. Seattle. 2 Seattle area men were sentenced late yesterday in U.S. District Court in Seattle for drug and gun crimes related to Seattle's International District and the homeless encampment on I-5 called the Jungle. First Assistant U.S. Attorney Charles Neil Floyd said that Isaiah Gamboa Pacheco, 56 of Everett, Washington, was sentenced to 6 years in prison, and Sang Tran, 55 of Kent, Washington, was sentenced to 66 months in prison. At Pacheco's sentencing hearing, U.S. District Judge Tana Lin said despite a previous conviction for the same offense, you came back into this country and did it again, but on a much larger scale. You are a source of a significant amount of cocaine to members of this community. Cocaine is one of the most common drugs involved in overdose deaths. What you did contributed to that suffering. Wait, are you telling me that one of these people is an illegal alien? Are you telling me that both of these people are illegal aliens? No, really? Quote, both these defendants had one job and one job only, selling large amounts of meth and cocaine for distribution in areas of our community plagued by crime and unhoused, vulnerable people dealing with addiction. Tran had prior arrests. Gamboa Pacheco had a prior conviction and removal from the U.S. Still, their greed kept them selling these poisons and carrying high-powered firearms to protect their drug trade. I wonder if it hadn't been the firearms, would a leftist have just gone, nah. See, a leftist would go, oh, there's guns involved. We got to throw the book at them. Oh, wait, color of their skin. We're not going to throw the book at them. It is insane to me, absolutely insane to me, that here you have an appointee of the Trump administration who says we got to get the drugs off the streets. And yet Katie Wilson and Gurmay Zahalai and Bob Ferguson and Nick Brown are like, we should really give out more crack pipes. Do you see the difference between the two? Quote, Mr. Pacheco and Mr. Tran sought to profit from the addictions and sufferings of others by redistributing huge quantities of dangerous drugs. Both were found in possession of even more drugs along with firearms during the searches of their residences. The FBI and our partners will continue to hold accountable the members of this conspiracy and others like them as we combat drug trafficking and violent crime in Seattle throughout the state of Washington. This is the kind of stuff that I should be getting press releases like this all the time. It's happening on every single street. And since the World Cup, the old haunts have come back to life with all this stuff. More and more of it, but unfortunately the eyes of the world aren't on Seattle anymore. They put on a great show for the World Cup, but when I take my commute in, I'm saying the same tense. Come on back to the same locations of where they used to be. Friend of mine in Port Angeles, he's excited because they're all leaving Port Angeles to come back to Seattle now that the World Cup is over. This kind of stuff, decay is preventable. Decline is a choice. And these leftists have chosen the decline. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way at all. Speaking of leftists choosing decline, when we come back, Congressman Adam Smith votes along with 100 other Democrats turn their backs on one of our best allies. We'll tell you what his reasoning for it was when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Yesterday, Representative Tom Massey, who's been voted out of office, according to him, by all the Jews in rural Kentucky. Yes, there are tons of Jews in rural Kentucky who got rid of Thomas Massey. I know that anytime I want a good deli sandwich, everybody says to me, go to rural Kentucky for the best kosher deli in all the land. That's where I go. You want good brisket? Rural Kentucky. That's good matzo ball soup? Rural Kentucky. That's where you're going to go. So Tom Massey, the conspiracy theorist lunatic, has this bill to cut aid to Israel. How much aid does the U.S. give to Israel per year? It's not $33 billion. It's not $330 billion. It's $3.3 billion. Is that a lot of money? Absolutely. But let's do this in terms of comparison, shall we? We give Ukraine $21.4 billion a year. 21.4. I don't like that either. But Israel would give 3.3. What do we get in return for Ukraine? Well, until recently, we didn't get anything. Now, we maybe get some minerals if they're able to get them. There's a whole if, but maybe we're getting something. What do you actually get in return for the money we give to Israel? And mind you, I wish Israel wasn't taking that money. But here's what you get. Israel is testing a lot of our war material and then improving it and making it better and sharing those design plans with the U.S., which is why we've been so effective in our strikes against Iran. 2, Israel turns around and buys U.S. fighter planes, U.S. war material with it. So that money's being spent here with American companies. They buy planes from Boeing. So that money comes right back to our economy. 3rd, intelligence. It was Israel that warned President Trump that they were going to kill him in Turkey last week, that Iran was planning to assassinate him. This is the kind of partnerships you want. Do I wish we weren't spending that money? Yes. But you know what? Right now, Israel has already announced they want to get off the American dole. But in addition to that, we give tons of money to other countries, a lot more than what we give to Israel. We get nowhere near anything in response to that. So I'm okay with it for the time being. Do I love it? No. I've advocated for a long time to get the U.S. off military aid, but watch. What'll happen when that happens is right now the argument is we hate Israel because they're taking U.S. military aid. Then it's going to be, what? You don't want our aid anymore? Why are you refusing the aid? Just watch. This is how the lunatics work. Well, what happened yesterday was normally these things overwhelmingly support Israel in Congress. Well, Tom Massey brings this thing, and 103 Democrats voted with Tom Massey to cut the aid to Israel. 103 Democrats, because now to be anti-Semitic, to be anti-Israel is trendy in the Democratic Party. One of the names I was shocked, absolutely shocked to see on that list was Representative Adam Smith. I sat in his office literally a week and a half ago. I was in his office in Washington, D.C., where he's talking about these radicals who show up at his house to protest, these anti-Israel radicals. They had to put some laws on the books in Bellevue to get them to stop from doing that. He's running against 2 anti-Israel jihadi lunatics. One woman who, let's not forget, is married to a convicted fraudster from Pakistan. That's number 1, who it seems like her entire platform revolves around Israel. And the other one is Shama Sawant, who, that's a whole other story, the Marxist. Adam Smith put out a statement on this. This was a very close vote for me. I'm a supporter of Israel. I recognize there are profound existential threat. They are under profound existential threat. We should not forget October 7th or the reality that Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran want to eliminate Israel. I also recognize that many of those who want the U.S. to completely abandon Israel do not support Israel's right to exist, and are willfully blind to the dangerous, violent, extremist beliefs of Hamas and others who threaten Israel. So why'd you vote against it? I am deeply concerned about the tactics used by those on the far left to advocate for cutting off aid to Israel. To date, my family and I have had our home vandalized. A fire has been set in my driveway. My neighbors' lives have been disrupted by demonstrations in the middle of the night. Town halls meant to be forums for dialogue have been shut down, and a staff member has been physically assaulted. By the way, that staff member was physically assaulted by Shama Sawant's husband. Those who engage in this type of behavior model a dangerous form of corrosive politics that seeks to intimidate those who disagree with them. We must be able to have civil discourse if we want to solve difficult problems, and I remain committed to open, respectful engagement. So why'd you vote against it? Despite my support for Israel, he writes, for over 2 years, I've been incredibly frustrated by Prime Minister Netanyahu's government and its total war approach in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, and even at times in Syria. Pause. Upset that they are facing an existential threat, under an existential threat, fighting for their very survival because of October 7th, facing a war on 7 fronts, but you're mad what they're doing to have to survive? What's the exact problem? What's the exact problem? Why are they in Syria? Well, let's see. Syria fell because Iran couldn't support the Assad regime anymore, and a guy who's an al-Qaeda terrorist is now running the country. Are things okay? Not really. Because what's happening is the reason Israel had to go into Syria is the Druze population. That's a kind of Arab Christian thing. It's kind of complicated. But anyway, the Druze, they were being massacred by some of the militias in Syria. And the Druze who live in Israel serve in the Israeli army, vote in Israeli elections, and said, can you please help our co-religionists? So Israel went in to help them when nobody else would. Lebanon, launching rockets at Israel. What would you like done different? Gaza, launching rockets at Israel. What would you like done different? Spare me this. Many of the people calling for a ceasefire on October 8th were people who wanted Hamas to succeed in destroying Israel. But Israel does not have to fight the way they have chosen to do so, a way that has caused enormous suffering and led to endless war. Fact check. This has been the lowest civilian casualty rate, death rate, in any conflict in the history of the world. In the history of the world. What are you mad about exactly? I've also been frustrated by Netanyahu's refusal to find partners for peace amongst the Palestinian people. Okay, name one. Name one. Really? Who is the partner for peace amongst the Palestinian people? You want to know how there aren't any? 251 hostages were taken by Hamas, hidden amongst Palestinian civilians. During the Holocaust, there were Germans, there were Austrians, there were Poles who helped out the Jews, who hid them in attics and basements and cellars and barns and helped them escape and got them passports and got them papers and snuck them out. Nobody helped the Israeli hostages. Nobody. Some of them were Americans too. Nobody helped them at all. Who's the partner for peace? He goes on to say, and I'm absolutely appalled by the actions of Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir in the Israeli cabinet. Yeah, you know what? And I'm appalled by Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Ro Khanna and Summer Lee and all these other lunatics in your party that you refuse to condemn. Spare me. You literally have people who represent Hamas like Pramila Jayapal and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. AOC, spare me. Their callous disregard for human suffering is constant, undermines the... Shut up. Shut up. This is nonsense. Lastly, Israel's action in the West Bank are indefensible. You mean going after terrorist enclaves? What's your problem exactly? What's your problem exactly? Lawless settlers. Okay, you know what? You're going down the Ro Khanna thing, which was completely disproven. Spare me. So you are going to stop aid to Israel because you are buying into the far left crazy talking points. Why is he really stopping the aid? You know as well as I do. Because he's running against 2 anti-Israel lunatics. And he's worried about losing here in Seattle because those anti-Israel lunatics have a lot of support amongst the far left who show up at his house and burn things in his driveway. He is worried about losing his election, so what he is trying to do is pledge his fidelity, his fealty, to the far left. And that's unfortunate because even after they attacked his house, and even after they attacked a staff member, and even after they come from time and time again, they're still not going to endorse you. They're still not going to support you. So you should be on the right side of history. And instead, you've thrown your lot in with them. Very disappointing. He's doing this to win a re-election. That is why all the rest is excuses. Or I could say, so you're interfering in a foreign election? Is that what it is? I thought you guys frowned on that kind of stuff. I thought you guys frowned on election interference. What, you don't like Netanyahu? Fine. Lots of people don't like Netanyahu. Now you're interfering in an election? Do you like Zelensky? Do you like Carney? Do you like any of these other guys? Which ones? I'm sure we have problems if we go through all of them. This is disingenuous and it's to win an election. And that's sad and pathetic, and we all know exactly what's going on. Up next, my friends, statues. Apparently racist again. Big racist statues. Tell you about how these things that have been there for hundreds of years are now racist. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Why does it always have to be Washington? Why do we always have to be in the news for stupid things like this? This is according to Not the Bee. Not the Bee is the Babylon Bee's real news site where it's too insane that you wouldn't believe it. So, up in Bellingham, Washington, there is a statue called Safe Return. It is a memorial for some fishermen who died in 1999 when their ship, the Lady of Good Voyage, sank in the Bering Strait. I don't know if this is the one from the movie or not, but I know the statue. I've seen the statue. What's the statue? It's a dude holding a rope. And at the end of the rope, there's something that looks like a noose. Now, Kevin, I don't know how much time you've spent boating before, but when you are bringing back a fishing vessel, not the little boats that I drive, right? Those, you hop off the dock while you're yelling at everybody to keep your boat from hitting the dock, and I have a sign that says, I apologize for all the things I said while I was parking the boat, and you take your little rope and you wrap it around the cleat and you're good to go. With the big boats, they have to have a noose at the end so you can hook it on the giant cleat because you can't run around the giant boat to get onto the dock. And the statue's for safe return because these sailors didn't come home. You see where this is going already,
I know exactly where you're talking. My wife's father was a fisherman up in Bellingham, and so they hold the beginning of the season right down there in that area. They hold a ceremony as people go out for the season.
That's very nice. Yeah. I didn't even know they did that. Yep. That's very, very nice. I think of the Billy Joel song, Down Eastern Alexa. He calls that one of his bathroom songs. I think it's one of his best, the ones where people at the concert go to the bathroom. I think it's one of his best songs because it's about the fishing on the Long Island Sound. Love that song.
One of more of his deeper cuts than not his main.
Exactly. I love that song. It's a good one. Anyway, so apparently, and you see where this is going already, according to My Bellingham Now, the police department, officers respond to reports of malicious mischief at the park around 3:30 a.m. on Sunday, July 12th. Port of Bellingham later shared photos on social media showing graffiti splattered on the Safe Return statue known as the Fisherman's Memorial. The port said its maintenance team has been working to restore the statue. They also confirmed the Bellingham police have made an arrest in the case. There is this woman named Cara Muniz. Cara apparently did this and was trying to hide in her vehicle after the police arrived to investigate it. Now, I don't think I have to say allegedly, but Kevin, check me on this because she's talking about doing it from her car. She's making the videos about how she's the one who did it. So if you confess, do I still have to say allegedly because it wasn't actually proven in court?
For our sake, yes, let's just say allegedly.
Okay, she allegedly made a video where she allegedly confessed to allegedly destroying and vandalizing this statue. And she allegedly posted on social media about this.
That's probably good enough. I think you covered yourself there.
I just want to make sure. I don't want anybody getting mad at me around here. I have enough problems with that. So what happens is she was charged with resisting arrest, assault, and malicious mischief. Now, I don't know what she did to those police officers, but she allegedly assaulted the police officers and allegedly did malicious mischief. Now, you might think she's just a lefty lunatic with green hair. She is a registered nurse who has worked for multiple AI startups. Way to flush your career down the toilet, or are the tech people going to go, oh, yes, let's hire her? Now, the more and more tech people I meet, I think they've been given a bad rap because a lot of them seem to agree more with us than with this lunacy. So, I don't know, is it a medical field thing? Yeah, this is insane. She lost her job. She got fired. She doesn't work for them anymore. The AI startup she had worked with, they said she's not working with us anymore. Yeah, maybe next time Google the statue before you vandalize the statue. Just a thought. Just a thought. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, including your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Brian Haywood is going to be joining us to talk about the success of getting the repeal of the income tax officially on the ballot. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it is your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. That's right. That music from our in-house Pink Floyd cover band means that it is your opportunity to win that money, and you're going to need it because Bob Ferguson is going to tax what you got right now, so a little extra wouldn't help. This week, we are giving away your choice of a Mississippi River cruise or $3,000 in cold, hard cash. All you have to do to enter to win the chance to win these fantabulous prizes is text the word I give you to the number I give you. Not your name, not your address, not your phone number. Like Liam Neeson in Taken, if you win, we will find you and we will reward you. Today's word is raft. R-A-F-T. As in you can float a raft down the Mississippi River. I don't know why you would. It's kind of nasty in the water. It's beautiful on the water. Don't get in the water. But anyway, you need a raft to not be in the water. Text the word raft, R-A-F-T, to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 for your chance to win. Had a little story, and I got to give you a little history before this little story here. A year or so ago? Yeah, back last year, right after the inauguration. I was invited to speak at the Eastside Republican Club, and I speak for local Republican organizations all the time. So I went out there, I love helping out the cause, and I go out to the Eastside Republican Club. And what happens is while I'm out there, I'm giving a speech, and I told the story. And I told the story, somebody I think was asking me about anti-Semitism or something like that, so I told the story about the way I deal with it is on social media, on X, there is a feature called lists. And what you do with lists is you make a list and you say, like, conservative radio hosts I want to follow. And you add Ari Hoffman to your list, and that way my stuff will pop up first when you click the list. So that way you can always see what I'm doing, right? But I get a notification that Joe Smith has followed Ari Hoffman, and I feel really good about myself because somebody's following me and added me to their lists. So what happened was I decided to, I don't want to say weaponize this, but after October 7th, getting a ton of anti-Semitism directed at me, tons of threats, you name it, it was all coming my direction. I was like feeling a little helpless, like I want to do something, but I can't really do anything. So I made a list. And the joke was it was called Names to Give Mossad. And you knew this thing was a joke because at the top of it, it had an image that says, Mossad, it's never an accident. So when somebody would make an anti-Semitic comment on my social media, I would add them to this list. That's the only way you got on this thing, by the way. Not if we disagreed, not if we had a rational conversation. If you made a blatantly anti-Semitic conversation, that's how you got on. Now, what's funny is you can tell who's really stupid on social media because the people who are really stupid believe it's true. Even people who hate my guts sometimes had a sense of humor about it, would make their own list. Like, well, things I can't repeat. But they would do that and then add me to it. All in good fun. I understand. So I'm at the Eastside Republican Club, and I'm telling the story just like I'm telling you, and people laughed about it. And this one woman hops up in the back, and she says, why'd you add me to your list? And I reply very frankly with, what stupid anti-Semitic thing did you say? And the whole room laughs again. Okay, and I'm like, see me afterwards and we'll talk. This woman comes up to me afterwards. She comes up to me with a binder full of material, not a binder full of women, but a binder full of material of every single anti-Semitic conspiracy theory you've ever heard in your life. And she's confronting me to go, this is true. This is true. I'm like, what are you talking about, you Looney Tune? None of this stuff is true. It was gibberish Hebrew nonsense. Look, I know the conspiracy theories. There's a space laser, even though that one was made up relatively recently by Marjorie Taylor Greene. The what's their faces? The Rothschilds, right? Whatever, we run the world. We control the weather. We all get money. All that stuff. I know about all that. I'd never seen this craziness before in my life that she's showing me. And she's just going through it. And then as I listen to her more and more, she starts sounding more and more like a leftist. She's got conspiracy theories about how Jews run America and Jews run the world and all this crazy stuff. Crazy. And at one point I'm just like, okay, this has been fun enough, but I'm leaving now. I'm walking away. There's other people to talk to at this event. I don't think I've ever really done that before. Normally I hang out. I'm in it for the fun and I see how much I can rile a person up. But then I was shocked to see that she was running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District here in Washington. Now, that race is where Susan DelBene is. Susan DelBene is the one who says, yeah, we need to embrace the socialists, and we need to have the socialists in our party, and socialism's good, and woo, yay, socialism. So we wouldn't want to endorse her, especially because she's a fundraiser for the Democrats, so she raises money for all the crazy Democrats. Absolutely not. We don't want Susan DelBene in that office. And yet I'm looking down the list, and who's there? This woman. Her name is Mary Silva. This woman is listed on the King County GOP's endorsement list. And I'm thinking to myself, I am shocked. I'm putting together my voter's guide, and I see this here, and I go, that's the lady. That's the lady who came up to me at this event. That's her. And wouldn't you know, the Herald actually has a list online of some of the stuff she has said, including 9/11 conspiracies, you name it. The Herald actually takes some time and debunks some of the stuff that she has said. So I'm shocked. So what do? I email the King County GOP. I got people there. They come on the show all the time. And I said, guys, I'm not sure if you're aware, but this woman is a Looney Tune. Here's some of the stuff that she said. And to their credit, and this wasn't because I'm a radio host or anything else, to their credit, they said, can we get back to you by noon tomorrow? And I said, absolutely. Take your time, do your research. Take your time, do your research. Now, the King County GOP did something that the Democrats could never, ever do. They got back to me earlier today, right before noon, and they said, Ari, we are revoking our endorsement, and she's no longer on our list. And I checked their website, and she's gone. King County GOP did what the Democrats could never do. Admit they made a mistake and fix it. The Democrats were confronted with a Nazi tattoo sporting alleged rapist, and they wouldn't pull him. They only got rid of him when his polling went so far down that he couldn't win. They only got rid of him when his fundraising dried up and he couldn't win. They didn't get rid of him for the Nazi tattoo. They didn't get rid of him. Look, everybody makes mistakes. People make mistakes. And I actually offered to the GOP. I said, guys, I know you can't vet. I know there's so many candidates to vet. I know sometimes you don't know everything. I know sometimes you're going to find this stuff out. I get it. And also, there's a lack of Republicans running. You don't want to have a race where there's not a Republican running. What ticks all of us off when there's a race and you go, why is this Democrat running unopposed? Believe me, I get it. But kudos to the King County GOP because they said, this isn't right. We'll get rid of it. We'll take care of it. This isn't who we are. And I was blown away by that. In less than 24 hours, poof, gone. What did it take? Since October, the Democrats have had Graham Plattner up there. Never mind all the other lunatics they got running. They got a guy from Al-Qaeda in New Jersey. They got a guy from Hamas in Michigan. They got these guys across the country that they're supporting, that they refuse to back off on, even though these people say, we hate America. Even though the one woman said, the one in New York says she wipes her hand, she uses the American flag as a napkin. The GOP, kudos to the GOP, because it's hard for anybody to admit they made a mistake. Harder yet for you to correct it, especially publicly. And I got to say, a stronger person would not have done that. I don't like when I get corrected. It happens all the time around here. We make mistakes. People email us, people contact us and say, Ari, you got this wrong. And then we come back on air and we fix it. I blew something with Turning Point USA a few weeks ago, and I fixed that because somebody called me out on it. I think it was the difference between Nicki Minaj and some other pop star who I didn't know the difference of. Clearly, my knowledge of pop stardom isn't that great. But we all make mistakes. And actually, my friend Brandy Cruz, she likes to say, you know how you know a real journalist? They're the ones who are willing to correct their mistakes. So many of them don't. We've talked about this on the show all the time. So for the King County GOP, the next time you guys have an event, you want me to come speak, no speaking charge, happy to be there, happy to come out, happy to speak for you guys, happy to talk about this, happy to help with any of this election stuff, because they got this person off the ballot. Not off the ballot. They got this person off their endorsement list. How many other people don't admit they make mistakes? Kudos to the King County GOP. Really. Kudos for owning it. Kudos for doing it. And also, it puts things in a different light. I was a little worried this was the rabbit hole they were going down because we know there's some people on the right who are kind of going down this rabbit hole, but they said, no, this doesn't represent us. She doesn't represent us. And we're not keeping her on the list anymore. So kudos to them. Democrats would never have the guts to do something like that, to admit they were wrong. Democrats right now, as opposed to saying, well, we were wrong to endorse all these socialists and promise all these socialists everything, they're saying, bring on the socialism. It's a big tent. We can allow the people in the tent. Kudos to the King County GOP. Really, good on you guys. Really, really good on you guys. Might have to give a donation. Really, really, really good on you guys. Really. And kudos to the people for calling it out. I mentioned this to a few other people, and they said, holy cow, I didn't even realize she was on the list. So kudos to them for fixing it. We all make mistakes. It's how quickly you can address those mistakes. So really good on them. And this is one of the reasons I'm really proud to be a Republican, because we can look at ourselves and we can go, yeah, that's not us. That's not what we represent. That's not what we stand for. We're not going to do that. I went to a political event the other day. It had to be off the record, so I can't tell you which one it was. I can't tell you who was there. I can't tell you which politicians avoided me. I can't tell you which politicians took pictures with me. I can't tell you which politicians I had lovely conversations with. I can't tell you which Democrat politician said, Ari, we're friends, but I can't, because I can't tell you any of that. But I did get an insight into the far left mindset when I'm at this thing. We broke into little work groups at this thing. And the goal of this thing was to try and bring people from different backgrounds together. And there's a woman there who says she identifies as black and Jewish. Interesting, fine, whatever. Okay. We're having a lovely conversation around the table where people are talking about this, and this is a lefty crew. I think I am the only Republican in the room, okay? I am literally the only one, okay? Jews and lefty Jews and everything, surrounded by all this. Clearly not my usual crowd. And we're having a lovely conversation. And they're talking about discrimination, and they're talking about racism, and everybody's got their own little table. So politicians are at their own table, and thought leaders are at their own table, and I'm just sitting there just observing until they start talking about racism, and they went a step too far. And I said to them, to this person who identifies as black and Jewish, I said, because I decided to throw in a grenade, a political thought grenade, not a real grenade. I said, so the Covenant Homeownership Program, the one where they did a study to see who'd been redlined here in Seattle, and they found out that it was the blacks and the Jews and the Asians. So they came up with this program that will help you qualify for a mortgage on your house and give you money for the mortgage on your house for blacks and some Asians. Can't help but notice you left a few people out there, just a few out there. And this person was like, I'm not familiar with this program. And I said, well, it's a thing. And, the legislature actually expanded it this year. Do you think it's racist? And this person started talking in woke speak, absolute woke speak, which was, well, systematic oppression and blah, 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 blah. And as a white person, you wouldn't understand it. I'm like, the Jewish guy wouldn't understand. I do love another Jewish person at the table said to a black person at the table, he said, I could take off my yarmulke. And I'm like, you're not wearing a yarmulke, dude. So you clearly don't wear one all the time. So people don't know that I'm Jewish, but you can never, take off your skin or whatever thing this person said. And I'm like, I walk around wearing this thing on my head all the time. I walk around wearing this thing all the time. Everybody clearly knows I'm Jewish. And then even if I'm not wearing the thing, I'm wearing a baseball hat, guess what? They still know. Not because the hat says Israel across it or something, but they know. They always know. You try to hide it, they always know. So this person starts pulling out well, you're a white guy, you wouldn't understand oppression. These oppression Olympics they get into, but more than that. The verbiage everybody at this table was using to try not to offend anybody at the table, to try not to trigger anybody at the table. If I had to walk through life being so cautious about every word I said, I'd lose my mind. First of all, I talk 3 hours a day and say some pretty outrageous things sometimes. So don't want to have to think about that. But two, I wonder if they think that we sit around being racists at Republican events. It usually happens when I'm at Republican events. It usually happens, okay, I give a speech or I watch somebody else give a speech. And what we usually talk about at the Republican events afterwards? If you've never been to a Republican event, come. You know what we talk about? Scotch. baseball. Oh, Ari, you went to D.C. Tell us about the Blue Angels. Tell us about the flyover. Tell us about the fireworks. Talk like normal people talk. I've got friends who are Democrats. I don't watch my words with them. We all sit together. We make fun of each other. We have a scotch. Nobody gets triggered. Have an old-fashioned. Nobody gets triggered. Just this past weekend, went out on the boat with some of our closest friends and their kids. What was the conversation about? How rough I could go with the boat to try and flip their kids off the tube. That's what it was about. What kind of music am I putting on that I can time swerving the boat back and forth and hitting my own wake to try and throw their kids off the tube? That was the goal. That was the mission. That's what normal people do. I can't imagine going through life, standing around talking about how to be triggered or how not to be triggered. It was insane. Mind you, it was a lovely event that brought people together from different sides. But you know how you get people to not care about this stuff anymore? You just be friends who have normal conversations. I never made friends with somebody because I'm sitting around talking about race. That's not how it goes. I never made friends with somebody because I'm sitting around talking about politics. I made friends with somebody because we have shared interests. Or we have different interests, but we find each other interesting, right? I sit around and make friends with people because we both like talking about scotch, or because we like talking about guns, or because we like talking about cars, or because we like talking about the Mets, or because we like talking about baseball, or because we like talking about whatever it is, the Blue Angels, the Seafarer, the whatever it is. That's how you become friends with somebody. You want to get rid of racism? You become friends with people. You don't see somebody as a black person or a Jewish person or an Asian person or whatever it is. You just see them as a person. Do I think to myself every time I see Jonathan Cho, oh, there goes an Asian guy? No. I go, there goes Jonathan Cho, and why is he wearing flip-flops? I don't think, oh, there goes a giant Asian man. No, that's not how I think about it. He's my friend. I think it's funny he's always wearing flip-flops around homeless encampments and stuff, and I would not recommend that. But that's what I think when I see my friends, right? I don't think to judge them. You know, it's like Quentin, who calls the show. Quentin's probably listening right now. Quentin, giant black man. What do I talk about with Quentin? We talk about Batman. We talk about superheroes. We talk about Marvel movies because him and I are both giant dorks about this stuff. Talk about Star Trek. Talk about Star Wars. We talk about all this stuff. That's what we talk about. And yeah, when we're at political events, we also talk about politics a bit. But most of our conversations are about that. I don't look at Quentin and go, there's my black friend Quentin. I look at Quentin and go, there's my nerd friend Quentin, who I can talk about this nerdy stuff with because my wife doesn't want to talk about it and his wife doesn't want to talk about it. So our wives talk to each other while him and I are nerding out on this stuff. Until people stop seeing each other for the melanin in their skin, this stuff ain't ever going to change. Ever, ever, ever. You want to fix racism? That's how you fix racism. I remind you of the Morgan Freeman quote. When he's being interviewed, I forget by which news anchor it is. I probably have the clip in here somewhere. He's like, you stop calling me a black man. Just start calling me a man. I'll just call you a man. I'll just call you by your name. That's how you fix racism. Not sitting around in focus groups. Shared interests. Becoming friends. Or debating in a friendly fashion over a couple of drinks. And unfortunately, that's something that's been lost from our national conversation. Now it's, oh, you like Trump, I hate you. Now it's, oh, you like Mamdani, I hate you, or whatever the case may be. Okay, radical leftists, you can never reason with them. They're just hardcore into the politics. Once you stop doing that and start getting back to what are our shared interests, when you start being friends with people, that's how this stuff actually changes. That's how you actually fix this stuff. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Up next, Brian Haywood from Let's Go Washington. We'll be talking with him about the initiatives and how it's going to be on the ballot this November. Got enough signatures in. And what's the plan for the marketing? Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. We don't normally get to report good news here in Washington, but yesterday, Let's Go Washington's initiative to repeal the income tax officially qualified with enough signatures to be on the ballot this November. Joining us now to discuss on the KVI studio line, founder of Let's Go Washington, the one and only Brian Haywood. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
So good to be back. We need to catch up more often, Ari.
Well, I'll tell you what. I got some special music for you today to celebrate the fact that this thing's going to be on the ballot. Okay, this one's for you.
Beautiful.
Okay, is that good for you? I don't want to offend anybody religiously or anything like that. Just making sure, right?
The Motab. Is that the Motab?
Okay, so this thing's going to be on the ballot. It's going to be there. I think the biggest challenge to overcome, first of all, is people needing to know they need to vote yes to repeal the income tax, not no, because no means you're not repealing it. And people are hardwired into, well, it's a tax. I'm going to vote no on it, right?
That's exactly right. In fact, that really goes back. That was the reason that Noah Purcell and Jamie Peterson were conspiring to prevent the referendum. An initiative means you have to vote yes to repeal something.
Gotcha.
And so that's vote yes, vote yes. And that goes with all the initiatives that are going to be on the ballot. Vote yes, vote yes, vote yes, vote yes.
Yeah, and just to illustrate this point to everybody, I have a friend I talk politics with all the time. And he comes up to me so proudly last cycle when we were doing this. And he goes, Ari, I voted no against all that stuff. I'm like, no, dude, no. And the color drained from his face, absolutely drained from his face. So that's exactly the kind of stuff that you're talking about. Okay, second problem, second challenge. The Democrats are going to get money for the rest of time with a tax like this. So they are fine throwing the bank at you to stop this. And I already see some of their ads running on social media. How do we deal with that?
Well, and I think first, this is not the main thing, but I think first of all, people need to know where that money's coming from, because this is union money. There's $150 million that the top three public unions take in every year, tax-free, and they get this money without paying any taxes to the state, and they use it to try to push more taxes on everybody else. So one, I think, is an awareness. And there's a whole other topic we can talk about the income tax unlocking all their public pensions. But first is awareness. The second then is we've got to activate people that have just sort of not involved themselves in politics up until now to get out and join us and donate. And I've tried to do so much of it just on my own with my own money and a couple of close people. This is bigger than me. It's bigger than any one person. This is the financial future of our state really on the line here. And so we've got to I think we need to raise $20, $30, $40 million to really fight back, because I believe that they're going to raise $50 to $60 million to fight against us.
Yeah, and I think the problem is getting the word out to so many people who don't even know this is an issue at all. There are people who listen to my show who have no idea. I literally had a guy in the last segment. I was talking about this crazy thing in Bellingham with a monument with a statue. And the guy goes, did you hear the crazy thing about the monument with the statue? Literally the same story, the exact same story that happened. So, okay, we have to get the word out, but there's something else. It's the lies the Democrats are telling about this. Oh, no more baby diapers or no more education and no more this if they repeal this tax. Yeah, last time I checked, the tax was passed. It's not going to affect until 2029, and they were paying for all this stuff long before this, right?
That's right. And there's two lies in it, right? One is they're pretending like if this income tax is repealed, that suddenly they're going to lose a bunch of money, which they never had. That's what you're saying. And then there's another piece, though, which is even more dishonest, and that is we crafted the income tax repeal very carefully so that the sales tax on diapers, if you vote yes to repeal the income tax, you still get the sales tax taken away on diapers, right? We didn't take the tax cuts away, because I don't think they should have been. I can't believe the greedy buggers in Olympia have been taxing diapers for the last 20 years. That should have been eliminated a long time ago. The working families tax credit does not go away with our income tax. So there were straight up bold lies told by the governor at the news conference, trying to scare people into thinking, as they always do, that somehow this is going to harm the children, right? Straight out of The Simpsons.
Yeah, it really, really is. I think we need to do a commercial where it's just a family sitting around a kitchen table. The kids are sleeping in the other room. Mom and dad are talking about how to pay the finances, and yet realizing all their costs are up because of the taxes, and just say, vote to repeal the income tax. We can't afford it anymore. Something like that. We could workshop this. But I think something like that will just run at home. Yeah. We just run that thing from now until forever, not on social media. I mean, yes, on social media, but we learned with Spencer Pratt, that's not going to carry the day. We got to do it on TV, and we got to do it on radio, and we gotta get in front of people. We gotta have people who go out and knock on doors. It's not enough to just vote anymore, right?
That's right, and I love that idea. Your last point, I think, is really super important, because one of the things I hear from people all the time is, well, it doesn't matter because as long as we have mail-in voting, we're never going to win. And yes, if that's how you think about it and you don't vote, but what I know from our signers, we track how many people have signed, and then I can see what percentage of them voted. And in 2025, there were 1 million people that we knew had signed at least one of our initiatives at some time, and only about 335,000 of those people actually took the time to vote. Yeah. And so that is a huge, huge opportunity. I think there's enough people to defeat this income tax, but people have to vote themselves and get their friends out to vote.
There's also a couple of other things. This new poll that came out from Signal, which was making the rounds yesterday, which we had on our show yesterday, and we were talking about this. It also shows how overwhelmingly people are against this tax, how overwhelmingly people are against Bob Ferguson. So if you find a way to actually get them to the polls, it's going to be too big to rig. There was one cautionary thing, just to play devil's advocate here for a second. There's one cautionary thing. It seems like the more messaging the Democrats get out there, it kind of eats away at a few people. So this really is going to be a messaging war, right?
That's right. If the Democrats can convince people this is a millionaire's tax, and that's the word that they're going to use, millionaires, then people don't think that it's coming for them, then we lose. It's just a straight up. People don't believe that it's coming for them. But we found in other polling, if we just asked voters, do you believe this income tax is coming for you or will eventually hit you? Just asking the question switches people's votes to opposing the income tax. And so the messaging, like you said, vote yes is the first and most important thing. And then right after that is helping people think about it a minute so they go, oh, yeah, I don't think there's any reason we should trust Olympia. This is absolutely coming for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the other thing is that with regard to your previous points about the mail-in ballots, guys, people said that about the 2024 election, and look who won all the swing states. And they said, we're not going to be able to beat the mail-in ballots, and they're going to do what they did in 2020, blah, 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 blah. Who's sitting in the White House right now, guys? Who's sitting in the White House? And for my Democrat friends who don't like Donald Trump, do you really want another tax hitting you because you know it's not going to stay where it is? Because Bob Ferguson crafted the income tax to already be hiring the Washington Department of Revenue agents so that they can come after you after this, and they have consistently refused to stop this thing at millionaires because they plan on sending it to all of us. Brian Haywood, God bless you for all your work. Thank you so much for what you're doing on behalf of all of us here in Washington, and always great to catch up with you, buddy.
God bless you. Thank you for all your support, and you don't want to your non-PDC registered support, right?
Wait a second. If anybody from the PDC is listening, I feel really left out that I haven't been hit with a PDC violation yet. I'm really feeling left out because it'll really help my analytics on social media. Brian Haywood, God bless you. Appreciate having you on the show. You take care, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, friends, my voter's guide is out. It's up at kvi.com right now, and I have different ways I endorsed candidates. There's candidates that have my full endorsement. There's candidates that have my recommendation. There's candidates I say, stay the hell away from these people because they're freaking crazy. But one of the candidates I fully endorse is, of course, Christina Stolzis, who is running right now for Washington State Senate. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Ari. I'm honored to be on your show.
So, Christina, I had a great time at that fundraising event for you that I emceed. That was a lot of fun. So full disclosure, I don't do fundraisers for everybody. I don't come out to everybody's events. That's how much I believe in Christina. So Christina, tell us the area you're running in so people know if they can vote for you. Let's start there.
Absolutely. I am running in the 47th district, which occupies Covington, Kent, a portion of Kent, East Hill and up, and a large portion of Auburn.
Now, here's something else, is that I go to a lot of these fundraisers, and not all of them does the GOP, do all these different legislative committees come out and give money to a campaign because, let's face it, the GOP has limited resources. They are backing you because they think you're going to win. Tell us why.
Ari, this is a swing district. This is a true swing district. We have so much hope. And not only that, I can tell you that I've been knocking on doors. I've knocked on over 4,000 doors now. I'm out every day talking to our voters, my voters. It's my favorite part of the campaign. And there's so much common sense that is missed if you don't get it at the door, if you don't go after it. The people are tired. The people know and they recognize, and they tell me that there needs to be a change.
Okay, so you're knocking on these doors. People are saying they're fed up. What are they fed up with exactly?
Well, instead of doing the hard work of living within our means, like our cities have to, Olympia keeps raising taxes and making life more unaffordable for our families and businesses. It's not difficult. They're tired of not seeing accountability, not seeing results, just dollars spent. When I talk to young folks, they don't think they can afford housing here, and they want to grow up in the communities that they were raised in.
Yeah, exactly. It's just too expensive. And then they pass an income tax on us. And then they say, hey, by the way, your kids aren't your kids. They're our kids. We're going to do with them what they please. Everything is out of whack around here. So in this race itself, you have an interesting opponent. And I know they tell you not to talk about your opponent, but I think what we should be saying is why your opponent sucks, right? And that's my opinion. You don't have to put it that way. You have to be more political than me, but I can say that.
You can, and you will never hear me say that. My opponent is my opponent, and it's just that. But I do not agree with the policy. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. See, that's a very nice political way of saying that. I do like that. I like that you're a lot classier than I am. Okay. So, Christina, top 3 issues. You get elected in November. Boom. What are you going to start with when you get into the legislature?
Well, it's really simple. I can tell you the people have voted the income tax down 10 times. 10 times. They don't want it when I talk about it at the door. They don't want it anywhere. We know that this will come for all of us because the only budget projection we hear from the Hill is always a deficit. It's already driving jobs out of town as it targets small and medium businesses and our family farms. So that's a big one. From that stems the cost of living. Cost of living, we can talk about that. We've already talked about that. That one almost doesn't need to be talked about. The taxes, we're hitting historic taxes year after year. We don't have to do that, and we can change that. And that's the thing. I wish people would just look at their voters pamphlet, make their choice, and know that it can be different. Public safety cannot and should not be controversial. Open air drug use hasn't helped anyone. I'm on the city council of Covington. I've been there for nearly 7 years. It's something we're fighting. We're seeing property crime. We're seeing retail theft like we've never seen it before. Those are my top 3 if I had to choose.
Gotcha. Now, when you talk about your time in Covington, tell us about the stuff you accomplished there, because so many people run for office and don't have a track record of success.
Yeah, no, we've had, first off, I am blessed to work with an incredible group of people, of council members who just make the job easy. And when it's not easy, we come to a common agreement. We're very civil. We're very unified. I ran in 2019 and beat a 14-year incumbent. And in those 7 years, I will never say there's an I, but we have delivered real results for Covington. We've made decisions that encourage our officers, that equips our officers. We've seen property crime. We've seen our crime numbers drop significantly. We do what's right for our community. We protect them. We protect them like they're our own. And I would like to see Olympia do the same. And we do this not because we're Republicans or Democrats, but because when a pothole needs to get filled, Ari, it just needs to get filled.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah. And if I may say, this election is not about partisanship at all for me. Olympia is broken and we need to fix it.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Christina, if people want to donate, if they want to support you, if they want to volunteer for you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Oh, that's very simple. You can go to ChristinaForSenate.com. Everything is right there. If you want to show up at my door, I will take your donations that way as well. Any way you can help. And it's not just funds. Obviously, any election, especially one of this caliber, requires a lot of funds, but there are many opportunities that folks can volunteer, their time, their hours. If you don't have the money, you can volunteer your time, and I would be immensely grateful. Ari, when I'm in the Senate, I will work with Democrats, with Republicans, and with anyone who wants to lower costs, keep our community safe, and balance the budget so we don't have to raise historic taxes year after year.
Well, I'll tell you, everybody, just a reminder, I am fully backing Christina. You should, too. Christina Soltis, who's running for the Washington State Legislature, especially the Senate, to make sure we can clean things up around there because we clearly do not have enough people of common sense over there. Christina, thank you so much for joining us today, and best of luck.
Thank you so much, Ari.
Such a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. You would think that the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, when they're missing millions of dollars and they have all this alleged fraud and scandal, they might kind of want to get their house in order, right? Daycares with no children in them, allegedly no children in them. Hundreds of thousands of dollars going to these daycares. They can't even find their director. Where's Tana Sen? Where's she been since all this started? I think I saw her on the back of milk cartons. Nobody can find her, the director of Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Yeah, you would think they would want to get their house in order. Instead, they send out a press release today. Residential private schools in Washington are now required to be licensed by the State Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Look, I got no problem with people being required to be licensed. I think people should be licensed to drive. I think they should be licensed to have children, personally, because I've seen some really terrible parents in my day. But I have no problem with you being licensed. My issue is you guys are not enforcing the rules you already have. You are not checking them. You are not enforcing them. You are not doing anything about any of this. And yet, we have these daycares that are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars with no children in them. With no children in them. So now you guys are going to take over the licensing for these other daycares? This doesn't sound very smart. The new oversight took effect July 1st as part of the implementation of Senate Bill 5515. Under new rules, residential private schools, often referred to as boarding schools, must ensure their living accommodations are licensed and monitored by DCYF and comply with health and safety standards. Cool. You guys going to start doing inspections at those empty daycares? Anybody? This is a distraction. That's why they send out this press release. Sure, they got to get people into compliance with the new law, but why would you trust this agency to get anybody into compliance for anything? Why would you trust them? They must also cooperate with DCYF investigations of alleged abuse or neglect of children or youth of the school. What about the abuse of federal funds? What about the abuse of state funds? What about the abuse of county funds? What about the abuse of city funds? It's nice that there's more oversight. It's nice you want to protect the children. But I don't think you guys can walk and chew gum at the same time, given your track record. So now you're going to go after the dorms at private schools. Oh, that doorknob right there, it's a little loose. That carpeting right there, coming up a little bit. And yet the school should just say, what about that house over there where there's no children and they're getting $250,000 a year of my tax money? So I love that the entire lamestream media just took this press release from the Department of Children, Youth, and Families and posted it as if it's an article, as if they researched it, as if it's a news story. Not one of them said DCYF has been plagued with allegations of blah, 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 blah. Not a single one. Our media doesn't hold anybody accountable. They claim to hold people accountable. They don't actually hold anybody accountable. Really, really embarrassing. I mean, the only one who's out there doing the fraud investigations these days is our friend Carlene Johnson over at the Center Square. Everybody else has moved on to other stories. Carlene's still out there, still finding more and more fraud. And even now the state auditor, who previously said, yeah, there's some issues here, is now saying, I don't know what you're talking about. What fraud? There's no fraud. You're fraud, right? There's so much they don't even want to talk about it. Don't even want to talk about it. Nick Brown, Bob Ferguson, Katie Wilson, all saying they're not going to investigate any of these claims. Why do you think that is? Because, you might have some issues with your voting base when you cut off the public funds they've been getting for so long. Meanwhile, it's not the only scandal brewing locally with schools. According to King 5, Seattle Public Schools Human Resource Investigation laid out allegations and photos that devastated Ola Ibrahim and Tyson Marsh. Said, my child is 8 years old. He's learned not to trust adults in his own community and to feel that he is not safe in their presence. King 5 is not naming the child. Marsh said traces back to what allegedly happened to their son in December under the care of this one individual whose name I can't pronounce. He's the president of the Seattle Education Association and a special education teacher at Rising Star Elementary School. According to Marsh, this person is on paid leave and remains the union president. You remember we covered this at the time. A statutory referral was filed with King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office in May. Statutory referrals are sent to law enforcement for mandatory reporters. Is this person actually going to be held accountable? They elected this person head of the teachers union anyway. We'll follow this story with great interest. When we come back, final hour free-for-all, your texts, your stories, your thoughts heading into President Trump's speech tonight. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free-for-all. Your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, text the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, President Trump is giving a much-anticipated speech tonight. What's he actually going to be talking about? But before we get to that, you know, earlier today I was calling out some of our GOP friends and praising them for when they made a mistake. They admitted, they moved on, they corrected it. I have to admit I made a mistake. There was one time I thought I was wrong. It was a time I thought I was wrong. No, the truth is that Forest Cat had texted us about the fisherman statue apparently before we did the story about fisherman statue. And I made a little joke in our interview with Brian Haywood that it was afterwards. So, yes, Forest Cat, 1,000% apologize. I should have looked at the timestamp. Switching gears over to what the president's speech is going to be about tonight. So just so you know, the KVI is going to be running the Ari Hoffman Reloaded. We weren't set up to run the speech, so our friends over at Northwest News Radio, AM 1000, are going to be carrying the speech tonight. If you want to listen to it on the radio, that's our sister station. So we're all part of the same family. That's Northwest News Radio, AM 1000. They are going to be carrying the speech tonight. We will be carrying the Ari Hoffman Show Reloaded. There's some automation stuff you got to deal with there. So that's going to be some of the stuff that we aired earlier today that you may have missed. You can catch that. And you'll have my full analysis of the speech tomorrow from 3 to 6, as always, during the show. Plus, I'm talking to Lars tomorrow, so you'll probably get the analysis from both of us. What is the speech going to be about? It's going to be about allegations of voter fraud. Now, what are some of the things the president may be talking about? The White House hasn't really said what the talking points are going to be, but these little stories are trickling out, and I think this is what it's going to be about. Fox News just reported the Department of Homeland Security told election officials in California, New Jersey, Nevada, Pennsylvania, that a preliminary review found what could be more than 256,000 non-citizens registered to vote across the 4 states. In 4 letters dated Friday, DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen said the department compared publicly available voter registration records with federal immigration data and uncovered thousands of potential matches. He asked state officials to work with DHS to verify the identities before taking any action. Now, that actually makes sense because the problem is if everybody just has at it, you're going to start dropping people that shouldn't be dropped. You got to verify this stuff. But according to the letters, DHS estimates there may be as many as 190,832 non-citizens registered to vote in California, 35,152 in New Jersey, 15,903 in Nevada, 14,576 in Pennsylvania. That's a lot more than what Nick Brown said a week or two ago. What did he say? Oh, it's only like 1 a year in Washington. I don't believe you. The department said it found 81,336 California registrants, 19,497 New Jersey registrants, 8,576 Nevada registrants, 8,594 Pennsylvania registrants whose names, dates of birth, addresses, and social security numbers match non-citizens in DHS records. Now, to be clear, we don't know if this means these people voted. So, for example, here in Washington, illegal aliens can get driver's licenses. And if you get a driver's license here in Washington because of motor voter laws, you are automatically registered to vote. That doesn't mean they are voting. It means they're on the voter rolls, which means they are counted as a legitimate voter. Now, if 86,000 people or 250,000 people have been voting illegally, you got a real problem. But this really shoots down the left's narrative of, oh, no, that doesn't happen, or Steve Hobbs. Steve Hobbs, one of the worst ones, because he says, oh, it's basically the honor system. Scouts honor. I promise I'm not going to vote, even though I'm automatically registered to vote. Washington State is so aggressive in registering people to vote. They pull whatever database they possibly can and register you to vote. That's what they do. So, my friends, now there's a smoking gun. As I said, it doesn't mean these people have actually voted. It means they are registered to vote. Now, the data I want to see is how many of them have actually been voting. And here's something else. Benefit of the doubt. You're an illegal alien. You don't know much about the way our country works. You think you can't vote. And then guess what? You get automatically registered to vote. You might think my permanent resident ID card, if you're a legal alien in this country, maybe they change the laws. Maybe I am allowed to vote. Who knows? That's the new problem you have to deal with. So now you got a new problem where these states have been doing. It's just like the commercial driver's licenses, right? Commercial driver's license is supposed to be U.S. citizens only. You have to be able to speak English, et cetera, et cetera. And yet these states have been issuing them to illegal aliens. So the drivers, in some cases, probably thought it was fine because they're being issued these. In some places, we know they're doing it nefariously. We know that there's been many documented cases of that. According to Fox News, many non-citizens are legally issued Social Security numbers, including lawful permanent residents, people authorized to work in the U.S., and certain visa holders. DHS said it used Social Security numbers as one of several identifiers in matching voter registration cards with federal immigration records. You know what's funny? When they first passed Social Security, they said it would never be used as a form of ID. Now, on your college finals, they used to post up the scores in the hallway before we had the tech we do now. And you look up your Social Security number, which is there for everybody to see, so you can see what you got on a test in college. Yeah, I remember when we used to do that kind of stuff. So why are illegal aliens being issued Social Security numbers? Can we fix Social Security by getting rid of the illegal aliens? Now, the Democrats are going to lose their minds. But if you want to save Social Security, a lot of people have spoken about the many ways to do it. Do you raise the retirement age? Do you lower the retirement age? What do you do about it? How long do people work? How do you deal with Social Security? And I'm going to say, maybe we just get all the people who shouldn't be on Social Security off Social Security and see where we're at. See how bad it actually is. Look, we all know it's going bankrupt. Maybe we should look at it this way. Mark Wayne Mullen said the most efficient way to ensure the accuracy of our findings is to work collaboratively on identity verification. DHS said is prepared to provide immigration records under federal law to help states determine whether those individuals are eligible to remain on the voter rolls. Mullen said ensuring that only U.S. citizens vote in elections is essential to protecting election integrity, writing that allowing just one non-citizen to vote cancels the vote of one U.S. citizen. He added that states maintain voter registration rolls while the federal government maintains the immigration records needed to verify citizenship. Why aren't those two agencies working together? Why didn't those agencies work together? The letters asked the secretaries of state to contact the DHS by July 24th so the department can begin sharing records and assisting with the verification process of future federal elections. California Secretary of State Shirley Weber, Pennsylvania Secretary of State Al Schmidt, New Jersey Secretary of State Dale Caldwell, and Nevada Secretary of State Francisco Aguilar did not immediately respond to Fox News' digital request for comment. Probably because they are freaking out right now. Holy cow, holy cow, holy cow, holy cow. They found out. Now you know why Nick Brown isn't sharing our voter records. Now you know why Steve Hobbs isn't sharing our voting records. Now you know why Bob Ferguson isn't sharing our voting records. Because can you imagine being on that list when this whole time you said, nope, not happening. Well, somehow through our phone outage issue, Transit Joe has managed to get a hold of us. I don't know how he's on the line, but he's here on the KVI studio line. Transit Joe, somehow you found the way. You have cracked the code to be able to call into the show, even though our phone lines are down. What's up, man?
What's up is that I'm a great watchdog, and I want to break some news that I've already filed PDC complaints against the
Joe. If this is about the income tax, I am not supporting you with this, man. Am I getting a PDC violation because I had Brian Haywood on the show?
Sir, you're going to like this PDC complaint.
Okay.
And I would.
Okay.
No on 645 is getting a PDC complaint for not having sponsor ID on one click from their social media. This is the same issue Let's Go Washington was warned about 2 years ago.
Joe, this is really what you're spending your time doing, Joe?
Yes, it's so much fun.
Joe, how about a PDC complaint about this? How about this one? I'll give you this one, okay? How about this one? Shama Sawant, who I know you love, right? I know you love Shama Sawant more than anything. Shama Sawant somehow got retail space from King County to have her campaign protesting outside the World Cup from a King County building. How about we go after that one, huh?
I think that's worth looking into. I wanna, and I do not love her at all.
I know you don't.
I will tell you who I do love very much. In the 45th Legislative District, Vanessa Kritzer is going to be your next state representative.
Is she? I'll tell you, man, there's a thing I can't say on air. I can't say it on air. I was sworn to secrecy. I would not be as happy with her as you are, Joe. I will just say it that way.
Well, she did fight Alex Zimmerman, who's an anti-Semite, so she is a
Alex
gladiator.
Zimmerman's Jewish. Alex Zimmerman's Jewish. You're calling him an anti-Semite, and you're obsessed with this one dude who shows up to council meetings to testify. Joe, there are better uses of your time. For example, Shama Sawant was using the old Kingdom Deli retail space, which is in a King County building, to protest for the World Cup. Did King County give her the space? Or did King County rent her the space? If they rented the space, everything's fine. If somebody at King County said, let the protesters use it, you got an issue, don't you?
Yes, I have an issue, and I definitely think it's worthy of an investigation, and I will get going to work on this.
There we go. All right. Now, Joe, when you get some news on that, you let me know. You tell me what the story is. Joe, appreciate the call as always. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Switching gears, Marco Rubio gave one of the best speeches I've ever heard today. Marco Rubio was talking about how the State Department is going to treat domestic terrorism, far-left radical terrorism, as actual terrorism. Anybody who lives in Seattle and who was here in 2020 can tell you that when Antifa and BLM took over 6 blocks of Seattle during the deadly autonomous zone, that was actual terrorism. There were people patrolling the streets with AR-15s. I don't remember the Democrats getting mad about that. Yet when you call this stuff out, they look at you like you're crazy. What about the white supremacists? What about the KKK? Spare me. Okay? I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of left-wing activists who are violent. And I've never met a member of the KKK. I've never met a white supremacist. Never seen any of them. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I am far more concerned about the left-wing activism. For example, the ones who took over the autonomous zone. For example, the ones who blocked I-5 on January 6, 2024. The ones who blocked the entrance to SeaTac Airport that April. The ones who've been marching down the streets in support of terrorist organizations. Them. Here's what Marco Rubio said today.
This is a distinctive and unique evil. It has always been driven by a hatred, above all else, a hatred for civilization itself. It is a revolt of the worst against the best, a revolt of the weak and the cowardly against the strong and the good. It is perpetrated by those who cannot build, who cannot create, who cannot achieve great things, and take their revenge upon the world for their own inadequacy, by seeking to destroy those who can. This is what radical leftism is. It may wear various different slogans and ideologies across place and time. They can call themselves anti-capitalist or anti-imperialist or communist or anarchist or Marxist, but the fundamental character is always the same. It's always the same. It is a poisonous resentment cloaked in the language of equality and justice and liberation, an overwhelming need to tear down what greater men have built, to wreck what is beautiful and what is right on behalf of people who are only filled with ugliness and have nothing else to offer the world. Through violence and through terror, they once again seek to impose their ugliness on all of us. The old dogma was wrong. The old dogma was wrong. None of this is driven by idealism. It is not utopian. In fact, it is the opposite. One of the criticisms you sometimes hear of communism, for example, is that it sounds good in theory, but it never works in practice. That's actually not true. Communism does not sound good in theory. The world it envisions for all of us is small, flat, gray, leveled of all exception, drained of all that is good and noble in the human soul. The world it envisions is a world without courage, a world without creativity or ambition, a world without heroes or glory or great causes to strive towards, a world without miracles, without myths, without men who rise above the rest to do incredible and extraordinary things. And the world communism envisions is a world without God. For these architects of revolutionary violence, the towering achievement of our civilization, for them, it's an unbearable humiliation, a reminder of what they cannot do, and a reminder of what they cannot be. So they choose instead to destroy. They attack pipelines, they attack railroads, they attack power grids and laboratories, the physical embodied symbols of power, and invention and achievement. This is the nature of the terrorism we face today. They despise the West because the West is great.
Do you remember just a few years ago, this was in 2020, 2021, that the Antifa types were derailing BNSF trains in our area? Do you not remember this? The FBI sent dozens of them to jail for this because they were derailing trains. Yet nobody called it terrorism. I wish this had happened in the last Trump administration. I'm thrilled it's happening in this Trump administration. Marco Rubio gave one of the best speeches I've ever heard in politics before, calling out this insanity and saying we're going after these lunatics.
This is an international conference because we are facing a transnational threat. These are not distinct and isolated cells. They are interconnected networks. They do not recognize our borders. They do not believe, in fact, in the nation state itself. They coordinate, they communicate, they travel, they train, and they act together, sharing the same infrastructure, sharing the same enemies, sharing the same mission. Antifa militants and their comrades travel from across Europe and to the Americas to participate in each other's attacks, to funnel propaganda and training materials and target information through shared encrypted channels, moving through underground networks of safe houses and finance, and sustain their operations through transnational funds. And they work alongside hostile foreign states that share their mission, like Iranian proxy networks, who are increasingly intimately tied to leftist militant groups around the world. The Cuban regime's sprawling intelligence and ideological network helped to build the far left in our country and in our hemisphere. And it remains inextricably linked to the far left groups and movements across and beyond the West. Today's far left terrorists can raise money in one country. They can host their communications in a second country. They can receive training in a third country. They can recruit militants in a fourth country, and then together strike a target in a fifth country. And so we have no choice but to confront this menace together.
So, how many times have we discussed that Antifa moves back and forth between Portland and Seattle? How many times have we discussed that the leaders of Antifa fled to Europe when they saw they were going to be getting big boy time? How many times have we discussed you need to go after them like they're Hamas or Hezbollah or any other terrorist organization? But according to the left, they don't exist. Let's go after the white supremacists. Or let's pay the white supremacists like the Southern Poverty Law Center did. Let's pay for the KKK. Let's pay for the hoods. Let's pay for the crosses. Let's pay for the gasoline to light the crosses on fire. There's a very real threat. It is the left-wing violence. I don't know why it's taken so long for it to actually be called out. God bless Marco Rubio. God bless President Trump. But I got a question for you. Has this kind of helped you decide who you want running for president in 2028 on the Republican ticket? Vance, Rubio, DeSantis, Trump. Who do you want to see on that ticket in 2028 at the top of the ticket? You want to send me both, be my guest. Send us a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, breaking news.
We are facing an
Whoops, that's Marco Rubio. That's not what I'm supposed to be playing right there. That's my bad. Anyway, when we come back, my friends, my whole system just completely froze up right here. That's not you. That is 100% on me. There we go. Okay. When we come back, my friends, a local tech company just announced more layoffs in our area. I love being right, but I hate being right at the exact same time. We'll tell you who it is, who's going to affect when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, head on over to KVI.com to register to become a KVI insider. That way you find out about all our events, contests, and also while you're there, you can read articles. My voter's guide is going up shortly, should be there soon. It is a work in progress. If you have questions about specific races, please email me, ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com, and I am more than happy to help you out. Some races, guys, there's so many races in Washington State, can't look at all of them, but I will try my very, very best. Well, looks like we got some breaking news for you even this late in the show today.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
During the last commercial break, I got an email from Washington State, from the Washington Employment Security Department. This is a warn notice. It's the one that lets you know when people are being laid off or fired. They have to send these out in Washington. I'm just going to read from the letter itself. The Washington State Employment Security Department received a warn for an organization in various locations in Washington. The organization's name is Verizon. Expected beginning date of separation, September 18th, 2026. Number of affected workers, 54. Layoff or closure, expected to be permanent. Verizon hasn't really been on our radar. We've been busy following what's going on with Starbucks, Microsoft, Facebook, or Meta, all these other companies, T-Mobile most recently. And yet now Verizon is laying off workers. Nice job, Bob Ferguson. Now, what I have to check when we're done with the show today is if Verizon is hiring workers in other places. That's normally a sign they're going to move. I mean, look, Verizon has tens of thousands of employees. I think it's roughly 90,000 employees across the country. So if you have 90,000 employees across the country, do you really need the ones in Washington? Or can you just lay off the ones in Washington, consolidate to other locations? And you know who might be doing that? T-Mobile. For those of you who don't know, those of you who don't live here, T-Mobile has a big headquarters out in Bellevue. But I've been hearing little whispers here and there that T-Mobile might be getting out of town. Now, T-Mobile did have a big round of layoffs earlier this year, and I know people who work at T-Mobile, thankfully they weren't affected. But are they consolidating to some of their other locations? Now, thanks to a public disclosure request done by a KVI listener, we found out that T-Mobile sent a letter to Representative Berg, one of the people behind the income tax, and many other taxes, talking about how they were going to badly affect the business climate here. T-Mobile privately warned Washington lawmakers that the state's tax policies were making it expensive to keep employees and decision makers based in Washington, adding another major employer to a list of companies raising concerns about the state's business climate. In a March 2nd letter to April Berg, T-Mobile U.S. CEO Srini Gopalan asked lawmakers to repeal the advertising services portion of Washington's expanded sales tax on services. The tax was enacted through Senate Bill 5814, the sweeping 2025 measure that expanded Washington's retail sales tax to a range of previously untaxed services, including advertising. Critics said the legislation increased costs for businesses, nonprofits, healthcare providers, child care organizations, schools, and other institutions already facing rising expenses. T-Mobile argued that the advertising portion of Senate Bill 5814 created a structural disadvantage for businesses headquartered in Washington because the tax is based on where the advertised services are received and used. By the way, this is exactly what Starbucks said. Starbucks said the exact same thing. Quote, companies headquartered in Washington with marketing teams or decision makers located here incur this tax on creative advertising services. Companies headquartered outside Washington do not. T-Mobile said the burden applies directly to the Bellevue-based telecom giant because part of its marketing operation remains in Washington. Quote, as one of the largest purchasers of creative advertising services in the country, T-Mobile faces an additional tax burden as a result of currently having part of our marketing team based in Washington. This results in an unintended competitive disadvantage for companies that choose to headquarter and employ workers in our state. The company's government affairs team followed up by supplying lawmakers with specific amendment language that would repeal the sales taxation of creative advertising services enacted under Senate Bill 5814. However, it did not get passed. Now, Representative Mari Levitt, Democrat of University Place, later called SB 5814 a failed policy and said the partial rollback enacted by lawmakers did not go far enough. She called the bill a disaster of policy, writing on social media, we were able to repeal a portion. The entire bill must be repealed in order to provide real relief. I called it the kitchen sink bill because they threw everything into it, just like the kitchen sink, or including the kitchen sink. Internal legislative emails also showed Levitt supported T-Mobile-backed repeal amendment, one of the few sane Democrats left, during the session, writing that she strongly supported it, wanted to introduce it if it had not already been included in the House's working version of the bill. The warning carried added weight because of the company's geographic flexibility. T-Mobile maintains a distributed corporate structure with roughly 3 major secondary campuses in Kansas, Texas, and Georgia outside of its Bellevue headquarters, along with 2 or 3 significant offices. Why wouldn't you just move the employees there? Also, I have to look, and I have to see when T-Mobile's lease is up, because I don't believe they own that building in Bellevue. I believe they lease that building in Bellevue. In February, T-Mobile laid off nearly 400 workers in Washington while continuing to hire elsewhere in the country, particularly in Kansas. The company employed approximately 70,000 people nationwide as of December 31st, 2024, including nearly 8,000 workers in the Seattle area. The contrast underscores how easily future hiring and investment could be directed toward T-Mobile's other established campuses instead of Washington. Now, they didn't threaten to leave Washington the way some other companies did, but Starbucks didn't either. And now Starbucks is out of here. Is T-Mobile next? That's my question. Is T-Mobile going to be the next one to go? Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Oracle, all layoffs. Our unemployment rate is already 5.2%, which is an entire percentage point higher than the national unemployment rate. The only reason we're not lower than that is because of the amount of government jobs they've been hiring for and the amount of temporary jobs, seasonal jobs they hired for the World Cup. It's going to get a lot worse next month. So, is T-Mobile doing what Starbucks did? We'll have to wait and see. Maybe I can get some more documents out of some of my friends and some public disclosure requests. We'll find out what's going on. Up next, my friends, we told you about this crazy lawsuit with regard to a Christian girl who was forced to be at an LGBTQ assembly at her school. And not just that, her school is having these anti-ICE marches, but won't let her discuss religion. Her lawyer will join us next. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It seems like every time we turn around, there's another scandal in one of our local schools, and it's getting to an epidemic rate. Joining us now to discuss the latest one out at Highline is Christine Campione, who is the senior managing counsel for the lawsuit that's going on right now. Christy, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. This is a big deal, and I'm glad you're taking it seriously.
Well, I'm kind of shocked that the rest of the media isn't. Can we start from the top of exactly what happened out at Highline?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to say this client has been a client of mine for over 5 years. She first came to me in second grade when she was in the elementary school, and had been being stopped as she was walking into the school for her backpack to be searched and for her Christian tracts to be removed. So her parents called me and said, "Is this okay? Is this normal? Are they allowed to do that?" And absolutely not. They're not allowed to do that. There's all sorts of constitutional violations there. So we sent a demand letter, and we got, as I expected, a very quick, "We're so sorry, this shouldn't happen." Some parents were having some issues with the way your client was talking about her faith, and sharing with other students about heaven and hell. And so they were upset about it. But this will stop. We'll not do this again, and she will be allowed to pass out her tracts as long as she's not disrupting school time. So we thought it was a great victory. We moved on. Well, earlier this year, her same family calls me back, and they say, "Well, our daughter was just pulled out of her class by the vice principal and was explicitly told that she has got to stop talking about her faith and passing out tracts at school during any school time." And my client responded with, "Well, I'm not doing it during class time when the teacher is talking. I'm doing this on recess or on my breaks or, during lunchtime." And she said, "Yes, but it's offending people. You have got to stop." And so, of course, we send another demand letter, this time saying, "Hey, here's your promise that you wouldn't do this to our client when she was in second grade. She's now a sixth grader. You can't tell her to stop talking about her faith in school. She has a constitutional right. It does not leave the minute she walks into the classroom. And as long as she's not disrupting class time," which, by the way, pulling her out of her actual class is disrupting class time.
Yeah.
She's not doing anything wrong. You've got to let her do this. And so again, they say, "You're right. This won't happen again. She can do that." Well, sure enough, about a month and a half later, we get a call again from her parents. And this time it seems like they've just decided to put her on the bad list, that they don't like her because of her Christian beliefs or, what she's saying, because they have an inclusion assembly and, they go into some LGBT themes. She immediately gets uncomfortable. She tells the teacher on duty, "I shouldn't be listening to this. I feel uncomfortable." And that teacher actually makes an excuse for her to get her out, saying that she has to go to the bathroom. So they pull her out of the assembly into the hallway. Turns out the bathrooms are closed. Another teacher walks up and says, "What's wrong?" She explains, "This is against my beliefs. My parents would not want me to be listening to this. I don't feel comfortable and I don't want to go back in." And that teacher continues to argue with her, telling her, "Well, they're not forcing you to believe these things. They're just explaining them to you." And she goes, "Well, yeah, I still feel uncomfortable." And then the teacher goes, "Well, you have no option. You have to go back in," and escorts her back in, where she proceeds to sit for 30 minutes sobbing and trying to not pay attention to this assembly while they're talking about things that are against her religion. She then has all sorts of teachers and friends noticing that there's a scene because she's sobbing, and everyone being like, "Hey, are you okay?" And so, she just gets wildly embarrassed and really uncomfortable. And her best friend and her just sit holding hands until they get into the next classroom. And then as soon as she gets home, they call me. So her parents, not wanting to, run into a lawsuit with their sixth grader, say, "Is there a way we can still try to work this out with the school?" And, of course we say, "Well, this is the third time that they've targeted your daughter, but of course, let's try the nice way." And when we send our demand letter this time, the school shockingly claims that no, she was allowed to leave. Of course she was allowed to opt out. She chose to go back in. The teacher didn't tell her she had to go back in, and that she went back in by choice. And of course, in what world does a child who is sobbing choose to stay sobbing in the middle of the assembly when she has asked you to leave. That wasn't her choice. She felt compelled by that teacher. The teacher told her she had no other choice. Of course, she went back in there. And so they're disputing the facts of what happened there. They're disputing the fact that they have targeted her for her Christian faith for years now. So we had to bring a lawsuit and challenging them both on the First Amendment and then on parental rights and this general concept that, yes, she did have the right to be opted out of this and they wouldn't allow her at the time, which is also unconstitutional. And the Supreme Court held in Mahmoud v. Taylor just recently that she does have the right to opt out of this specific material because of her religious beliefs.
So there's so much to unpack from this, but let's start at the very beginning. So the kid has the First Amendment right, the government shall make no law regarding established religion. That means the government, the public school, cannot enforce their own insanity on the kid. That's clear cut. But it seems like that's exactly what they were trying to do. But now here's where I have an issue. I mean, I have many issues, but the biggest one I have is Highlight had these protests where they let the kids leave campus so that they could go protest against ICE. They had this LGBTQ event on campus. They don't think that's distracting from class time, like you mentioned earlier. But in addition to that, that's forcing their agenda on these kids. And yet they're claiming that this kid, by giving out Christian literature during her free periods, that's forcing their agenda on kids. The hypocrisy is outstanding.
Well, and that's what, I mean, this overarching case, it's not just one incident. It's three separate incidents where they've clearly put a target on her back because of her religion. They just don't like it. They don't like what she's saying. It has made people uncomfortable. And as a result, you're right, forcing her into their box, but not allowing her the protection to be able to opt out of that.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Now, the other thing regarding this is, just to play devil's advocate for a second here, and I know I probably shouldn't say that to somebody representing Christians, but I mean, look, she shouldn't have to leave the school. But after years and years and years of this kind of stuff, why do the parents keep sending her here as opposed to sending her a religious school where she might be more comfortable?
Well, I mean, as you know, in order to go to a religious school, you're not going to be giving your free education anymore. But also, it's really neat about the heart of my client is that she truly believes this is where she's supposed to be because this is what God has told her to do, to witness to others and to be a light in the darkness. And obviously, other children at this point would have stopped and would have just listened and obeyed the teachers and not brought this up again. But she knows that that's against her beliefs and that's not what God has called her to do. And so she has a heart and a passion to be at school talking about her faith and being a light to others. And if you talked with her, she would tell you all day that, no, this is exactly where she's supposed to be. And these are the people that she's supposed to be witnessing to. And this is what God's plan is for her life. And she's now excited to push into this lawsuit to see, what God's going to do in protecting her. So it's really encouraging as an attorney to see somebody. I wish that for my own daughter, that she would have such a voice to stand up for herself and to say what is right in the face of adults telling her she's wrong.
I could not have said it better myself. In the last few minutes we have with Christy Campione, who's a senior managing counsel for this lawsuit. Highline has been the source of controversy for a very, very long time. The school district has had issues like this before. And a kid like this is laudable, because this is a kid who believes in their religious beliefs. They're not making trouble whatsoever. And yet, meanwhile, they're pushing this hyper-radicalized sexual education on these kids. They're telling them to go against the government. Does the school not see the very optics of this when they have drugs and they have murders and they have assaults and they have everything else that happens in these public schools? That here they have a kid who just wants to talk about God, but apparently that's worse than anything else going on campus.
Exactly. And I couldn't explain to you why they think the optics of any child, it doesn't matter what the topic is, sitting in a crowded assembly sobbing. I mean, in any circumstances, any other school would allow that child to at least go sit at the principal's office and call their parents. Why were her parents not called? Her parents didn't hear about it until she got home that day. No one was concerned about her or that it was inappropriate for the other students to have to witness a child being so distraught for 30 minutes. I mean, if I were other parents in the school district, I would be really concerned about how they're treating your children.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I got to say, kudos to your client, kudos to her parents for standing by their beliefs, especially in the face of opposition. And so where does the case go from here?
Well, we are serving them as we speak so that their attorneys have now come onto the case. And so we're really excited because we're going to hit the ground running. And there's going to be motions practice back and forth where we're going to be filing our arguments and waiting for their responses and hoping that the judge quickly is going to hear our plea and side with us.
Well, Christy, I wish you guys the best of luck, and please keep us informed as to the progress of this case, because it really could be trend-setting, precedent-setting for cases going forward with regard to religious freedom.
Yes, sir. And thank you for highlighting this for everyone. It means a lot.
My pleasure. The very least I could do. Christy Capione, who's a senior managing counsel for this case, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Anytime the Blue Angels are in the news, usually it's good news, and I love when the Blue Angels are in the news. Plus, it also reminded me to fill out my press request for a ride-along. I will get it one day. I know the radio guy probably doesn't get priority, but I got a bigger social media following than Chris Daniels or any of those guys, right? So, yeah, take me up in the Blue Angels. I think we should start a petition. Get Ari a ride-along with the Blue Angels for Seafair. I'll probably puke my guts out, but it'll be worth every minute of it. It'll be fun.
There was a time where I almost had, they're flirting with the idea of me going up.
And?
No way.
Why?
No way.
Okay.
Don't care. I'm not a thrill seeker like that stuff. I don't care.
Okay,
no
I don't want
way.
to go bungee jumping or skydiving or anything, but in a plane, it's a perfectly good airplane. So, all right, years ago, there was an auction item at a fundraiser auction that my father-in-law bought, which was you get to go to fighter pilot school. What it was really was there's these two prop plane Italian fighter planes from, I don't know, 1950s or something, and they take you up with these suckers.
Like the stuff we saw at the Bremerton Air Show last weekend.
Like the stuff we saw at the Bremerton Air Show last weekend. So they take you up, and it's basically like a driver's ed car. And it was me and my brother-in-law. He's in one plane, I'm in the other. There's a pilot with both of us. It was pretty awesome. So what happens? We go up in the air, and you dogfight. So you're using the joystick, and the other guy's using the pedals. So you're not taking off, you're not landing, but you are flying that plane. And they give you a little lesson beforehand, and you feel really awesome. Now me, I'm like, I can handle this. No problem. Going to be perfectly fine. I think they had 7 bags of vomit in that plane that I went through, something like that, because there's video. There is video of this because they give it to you. It's disgusting. We used to play for the youth group all the time so they can make fun of me. But I will say, I won the dogfight. Because what they said is don't go weightless. You know, when you make that arc and then dive down. Anytime we went weightless, I'm grabbing for the bag, but I had to get that shot on my brother-in-law. And what happens is when you get him in the heads-up display and you hit the trigger at the right thing, the other plane sends out a smoke thing like you hit him. And then the pilot puts you into a spin. So that really didn't help when my brother-in-law got me a couple times. You do it like 6 times, best of 6. Head-to-heads.
I want no part of this, man.
Yeah, I spewed my guts up everywhere. It is gnarly video. Really, really gnarly.
And these are prop planes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do the Blue Angels, baby.
No,
I want to puke on a Blue Angel. It'll be great. Come on, I'll be in the one that is always off by itself, not like the 4 that are all next to each. It'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'll come into the show that day and be like, I'm not fine. I'm not fine. Run a best of.
You know, Mark, who used to work here, he worked all of the seafares, right? So he kind of had a hookup. And so I know that he, for a while there, could get some people in the cockpit, but I don't know.
Radio legend Mark Christopher, he came out to the Bremerton Air Show on Sunday. He came out to say hi to all of us.
Hi.
Yeah, it was funny because I had gone to get a drink. I come back, and some guy's talking at the Northwest News Radio, and Marina goes, hey, Ari, look who's here. And it's radio legend Mark Christopher standing right there. It was great. It was so good to see him.
So there was some talk of me possibly going up at some point, and I said, no, thank you.
I want to go. Okay, do you have Mark's phone number? I want to call Mark. I'm going to call Mark. I want to go. All right. Okay. I went to see him at Seafair one year. I went up in the booth. Anyway, why am I bringing up the Blue Angels? Okay. So apparently one of the Blue Angels buzzed a beach the other day. According to Stars and Stripes, which is a military magazine, a Navy review of the circumstances behind a stunningly low Blue Angel flyover at a crowded Florida beach this week resulted in no reprimands. So, according to Acting Secretary of the Navy, Hung Kao, he said in a post on social media, flight debrief complete, no reprimands, no firings, no problem. Okay, I have to tell you how low this sucker got. You could reach up and touch it. It was that low, at least it looked that low. He was right there on the beach. Right there. In videos widely shared on social media, Blue Angel's fighter jet is seen flying what appears to be just feet above onlookers Wednesday at Pensacola Beach. Do you people not love the sound of freedom? Because that's what this was. Inject it into my veins. So when I was out at D.C. for the fireworks for 4th of July, I think I mentioned this on air. You're sitting there, you're waiting for the fireworks to start, and all of a sudden a B-1 bomber comes out of nowhere. Afterburners flying everywhere, and that's how you knew the show started. It was awesome.
Did you check your underwear afterwards, or did you have some heads up on that?
Oh, no. It was a holy cow. We had no idea that was coming, and the whole crowd just went, whoa! It's like, America! I wish I had a video of that. I mean, I really did. It was amazing. Anywho, The maneuver awed the crowd gathered to see squadron practice, but also sent umbrellas, chairs, and sand flying. I don't like sand. It gets everywhere. It's coarse, and, Anakin Skywalker wouldn't be happy about that. Earlier Thursday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth appeared to have weighed in on the maneuver. Quote, "The flyovers will continue until morale improves. I need a poster. I need a flyer. I need a flag that says, I've got the pirate one at my house that says the beatings will continue until morale improves. I need one with a Blue Angel on it. If they are selling this at Seafair, Kevin, I will buy it with the quickness. I will buy that sucker." The Blue Angels could not immediately be reached for comment after Thursday. Okay, if I get my Blue Angels flyover, I'm going to be like, dude, how close can we get to the water? How close can we get to like Seward Park? Can we freak out the libs in Seattle? I want them to have the exhaust in their nose. I remember how close those guys used to get. They don't get that close anymore. They also moved the flight box when the light rail started running, so they don't interfere with the light rail because the light rail. These people hate freedom and they hate fun. They said they wouldn't stop the trains for Seafair. You know how they used to shut down the bridge? So they moved the whole flight box on down, and the view from my house, not as good anymore. So extra mad at Sound Transit for that. Very mad about that. Anywho, I think that'll be great. I say we buzz Columbia City, University of Washington. What are the other really woke places? Capitol Hill. Let's get as close to the autonomous zone, the ancient ruins of the autonomous zone as we possibly can.
Fremont, get over in Fremont.
I want to rattle the Lenin statue off its base. I want them to fall like it's 1989, the Soviet Union's collapsing again. That's what we want. That's the sound of freedom, baby. Okay, so the flyovers will continue until morale improves. Okay, that's the best line of all time. I think I like Pete Hegseth even more now. In a statement Wednesday to Pensacola ABC affiliate Weir News, the Blue Angels said officials were reviewing the flyover and conducting a safety assessment. Looked awesome to me. The guy's just watching the footage. Hey, look what I did. Look what I did. Isn't that awesome? That's the review they just had. That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. Oh, look, a Chinook helicopter. He's pretty low to the ground. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.